Post from Madameknitsalot. What's your "'tis but a scratch" moment? Comment from Jon-Longson. I am a bartender in a nightclub. One night while working I was pouring a drink while I reached back with my other hand to open a fridge. And that's when I heard a pop, and got a huge pain in my back shoulder area. The pain was pretty bad, but I was sure it was a pulled muscle and there wouldn't be much point in seeing a doctor other than getting meds. So I waited, fought through the pain which was so bad at times it was making it hard to breathe. That was a Friday. I called off Saturday and had Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off before I went back to work Wednesday. Once I biked into work. In all I waited 9 days total before finally deciding to go to the ER. I had a collapsed lung. Called a spontaneous pneumothorax. 20 minutes after getting to the ER I was put into emergency surgery. I was essentially breathing with only one lung. And any major impact to my chest would have collapsed the other and probably killed me. Comment from Onzi9. A couple weeks ago, I stepped on an ant hill and got a bunch of ant bites on my ankles. 3 to 4 days later, the itching was unbearable. I wasn't sleeping. My legs were swollen, and no amount of Benadryl or antihistamine cream was helping the itching. I finally went to a clinic to get a shot or whatever, because I clearly having some sort of allergic reaction. It was a staph infection that had spread from my ankles up to my knees. I would have died if this 1920 instead of 2020. I was on antibiotics for 10 days, and now several weeks later, the dead skin from the infection is still flaking off. TLDR. Scratched ant bites with unclean hands and gave myself a staph infection. Ignored it for several days because it was just some bug bites. Comment from Twosteppindepression. I got hit by a car my freshman year of high school. I went flying, lost consciousness for a split second when I hit the ground, thank God for helmet. When I came to, people were all around me asking if I was okay, and what happened, etc. I was like, oh yay, I'm good. I'm gonna just get back on my bike and go now, but didn't really move. Then people started asking me to call an ambulance and my mom, etc. I was like, why? I'm good. I even told my mom on the phone I was still gonna bike home, but as I was saying that, the people around me had started to move one of my legs and I watched as my foot proceeded to not move. I had broken both bones in my leg completely in half and part of ankle. Just pure adrenaline and shock. I also vividly remember thinking, this is what it feels like to get hit by a car. Also the leg wasn't setting right, probably from movement, and the doctor decided to put me on laughing gas as he tried to crack my bones back into place. Was in a stupor laughing as I felt my bones grind. Comment from not_you_HB1SJFSPE7. I got hit by a car while riding my bicycle, flew through the air. Bounced off his windshield, breaking his windshield, my helmet and 2 vertebrae. Then thrown to the ground where my kneecap shattered and bone was sticking out of the skin. And as I lay there in shock, unaware of how badly I was injured, I thought, I might be able to get back on my bike and ride home. Comment from ohgeezyouagain. My little sister fell down about 15 steps at our grandma's house when she was a toddler. She got up, giggled and went to go eat some snacks. This other time, still a toddler, she was supposed to be napping. We were in the living room and heard a huge thud. We ran to the room thinking she'd fell out of the bed. Nope. She somehow managed to pull the TV down. This was the early 2000s. TVs were heavy AF, and it fell on top of her. She was laying there in snow angel position and my mom freaked out. When we got the TV off her, she got up and asked for ice. Not to soothe pain but to eat. My little sister was and still is a champ. Comment from L_Pobster. Back in my baseball days, when I was pitching, I completely lost a pitch, and it beamed a guy in the jaw. He throws his bat down, glares at me with the glariest of glares ever glared, spits out blood, then calmly runs to first base as though nothing happened. It was terrifyingly badass. Comment from thatfatrunner. Fell off my bike and dislocated my shoulder. Popped it back in and kept on going. Trapped a nerve but it's okay 90% of the time now. Another time I fell in some glass. Pulled out most of it from my hands and pulled out a piece approximately 9 days after the wound had fully healed. I felt a weird pressure when I'd hold things so I had to feel around and cut the glass out. Comment from Libanator4. I was mountain biking and fell off. I fell down part of the mountain and into a road where I almost got hit by a car. I got up quickly, thanked the driver for not killing me and then got back on the bike. I knew the road would meet up with the trail I was on so I could meet up with my group who hasn't seen me fall. When I got to them, one of them looked at me and was like, "What happened?" I got off the bike, walked over whilst we waited for the others to catch up and just said I fell off. He then looked down at me and was like, "What the hell happened?" I'm like, "It's nothing. A few cuts and scratches on my hands and arms. My leg was bleeding from earlier and that was it." Then I looked down and realized I had scratched off half the skin on my leg from falling on the road. Basically a bad case of road burn. From all the adrenaline I hadn't even felt it. They called someone to come and get me from the mountains. I wasn't allowed to continue, and one of the other riders saw my leg and decided they wanted to stop too. I just went to a pharmacy, grabbed some wipes and bandages, then we got a drink whilst we waited for everyone else to finish. Comment from AdmiralGinge. My first job was as a butcher and I came into work one day with a raging hangover. I sharpened the knives, they were crap ones that went blunt all the time, and immediately proceeded to cut my finger open. I thought nothing of it. Went about my shift, and when I got home to put a proper dressing on it I found out it was as deep as the bone and I wouldn't get feeling back in the end of it for literally years. Comment from carleycarleyann. I broke my arm at the skating rink and skated for an hour before I even left. Then, after I left there, I went to a playground with my BF at the time and hung out. I didn't go to the hospital until the next day. Comment from SnapesWorkAccount. A few years ago, I was sick. Not fun. But it was only a bug. I'd be okay in a couple days max. I started to get an unusual pain in my abdomen as the day wore on. But to me it was just a side effect of all the throwing up I'd been doing. I spent the night in the spare room for 2 reasons. 1. Because I was so frickin' hot, and 2. In case I needed to get up. I didn't disturb my partner who would be getting up early for work. I managed to get an okay night of sleep, with the vomiting having stopped. But I still felt shit. When my partner came to see me before he went to work, he asked how I was. I still felt terrible, but it was a tummy bug. I wasn't going to be instantly better, but that sharp pain was still there. On hearing that I still was in pain, he insisted on taking me to hospital. I didn't think it was at all necessary, but I was too exhausted to argue. When we got to the hospital, I made damn sure the person at the front desk knew I thought this was a waste of time. After a lot of prodding and questions about if I was pregnant, it turned out it was my appendix in the process of rupturing. Comment from Alsoananimelover. Not me but my teacher. She said that one time when she was in college she was in a classroom and her foot was stuck on something, but she just yanked back and was fine, but she was looking up the whole time. She got to her dorm and took off her shoe and it was soaked in blood and her foot was stabbed by a loose piece of metal. Comment from Urist_McMe. When I was a teenager I got jumped by a hoodlum trying to mug me. I was just walking along and they snuck up behind me and cracked me in the spine with an iron bar. Somehow the blow, instead of being painful, just went completely numb. So I turned around and said, "What the fuck was that?" I'll never forget the look of fear on the guy's face. He just dropped the bar and ran. Still get a weird numb spot on my back from time to time. Comment from Jointhamurder. Got blackout drunk while camping and fell hands first onto the grate that had been over the fire for hours. My wife and friends were all freaking out thinking I definitely had third-degree burns. I came out of my blackout in the bathroom with all of them trying to wash my hands in cold water. When all the soot came off, I was somehow completely unharmed. Since then I've been known as the unburned. Comment from MercyGrace22. I walked under a pine tree barefoot and stepped on something that mildly hurt. Went back inside and was cleaning my bathroom when I looked in the mirror and saw whole bloody footprints covering the floor behind me and a line down the hall. For a minute I thought I was being haunted or something. Comment from sleepyprojectionist. When I was very young I pulled a tablecloth and managed to dump a freshly boiled pot of tea all over myself. I get rushed to hospital. My skin is red and bubbling. I should be in floods of tears. Instead, I proudly point to my ruined skin and proclaim to the paramedic, "I did that." Over 30 years later and I still have some scars. But I am definitely no longer that hardcore. Comment from DarthCloakedGuy. When I was a small dumbass child, I had a habit of gripping doorframes when walking through the door. I did not discriminate between the latch side or the hinge side. Door gets closed and my fingers get crushed in the hinge, to the point where there's a dark purple line across them and a tangible groove. My mom starts completely freaking out over the injury. But I, brave little dumbass I was, saw the distress she was in at what had happened. I put on my bravest face, my eyes welling up in tears from the pain, and said, "Don't worry, mommy. It'll heal." I was right. It did. But still. Edit. Good lord, my inbox. Thanks for the guilds, guys. I'm glad you enjoyed my story. Comment from MadLintElf. Separated 2 ribs when I slipped going up a staircase. I went down to radiology at work and got an X-ray. Looked at it and said okay, no breaks, and just walked over to the and got 2 big rolls of ace bandages. Went back to my desk and took off my shirt and t-shirt. Boss walks in and sees the bruises on my chest. Then I said no biggie, just don't make me laugh, told him what happened, wrapped myself up and went on with life. Comment from CW2E. I was a kid visiting family in West Virginia and was playing with some other kids, which somehow involved me being in a tree. I got a little cut on my hand and was inconsolable. Ran to the house for my mom to make it better. She put the smallest of band-aids on it. When I turned around and started walking out of the house, she started yelling and I was just looked at her like, "What?" There was a trail of blood coming from the back of my leg. Didn't even notice. Comment from CDC_. I was making a ninja mask. I had a piece of cloth and I was trying to cut the eye holes out of it using a small steak knife. No, it wasn't on my face. I wasn't quite that stupid. But I was holding the cloth and cutting with the knife. The knife slipped and went straight into my pinky finger. I had to actually pull the knife out. It went right beside my joint and stabbed straight through the flesh on my pinky. I pulled the knife out and blood was just pouring out of me. Which was weird to me at the time. I didn't realize a pinky would bleed that much. The worst part is, I was home alone. It didn't really hurt that badly. Strange as it may seem. It was honestly no worse than a regular cut. Pain-wise. Anyway, the blood was coming out at a rate which I had never before seen. I went to the bathroom and wrapped like 7 band-aids around it and then took some masking tape and wrapped that around all the band-aids. I was like, surely that'll stop the bleeding. I said fuck the ninja mask and sat on my couch watching TV for a bit. Then noticed the tape was starting to slide off. I bled through it and all the band-aids in maybe 5 minutes max. So I got some paper towels and decided to hold pressure on it, but the cut wasn't very symmetrical. I couldn't figure out how to get the skin back together. I did the best I could and bled through a bunch of paper towels and finally was like, fuck, I think I'm gonna have to call 911. So I called 911. They came out and by the time they got there I was feeling rather weak. There was blood all over my sinks, bathroom and kitchen, and some on the floor. They transported me to the hospital and gave me stitches. Healed up good as new in a couple weeks. Doctor said I was lucky I didn't sever any tendons. My mom came to the to take me home. It was kind of an awkward ride. She bitched at me some for being too old to be doing this kind of shit. The kicker is, I really was too old to be having accidents like that. You're probably picturing a 10 or 11-year-old kid. Yeah. No. I was 19. Comment from ViviNoirMV. Broke my tailbone and didn't know for 6 months. Edit. To answer some questions. Found out when I got an X-ray. I've always had moderate back pain. But I also have a high pain tolerance. It's the only bone I've ever broken. I was 14, I think. It was freshman year of high school. Some of y'all need Jesus. Comment from dndaresilly. Absolutely shattered my wrist. Pulverized a couple carpals into dust. Fractured my scaphoid bone and flipped it 180 degrees. Spent 2 days trying to convince myself it was but a simple sprain. When I finally went to a doctor, they rushed me into emergency surgery. Later found out the doctors couldn't believe I wasn't incapacitated by pain. Whoops. Comment from Kitty Lilith 17. Fell off my bike and into some wet gravel when I was 8. No big deal. Scraped my knee and got soaked. Played the rest of the day outside and came home for dinner. Went to use the bathroom and when I pulled my jeans off I realized I wasn't soaked from the puddle. It was blood. I had sliced a huge gash in my knee and when I pulled my pants down a flap of skin pulled away and it started bleeding again. My first stitches. Edit. Lovely. My all-time top comment on Reddit is about a skin flap. Thanks a bunch. Comment from NovaliumTS. When I was younger. Like really young. I had escaped from the house and at the time my dad was just about to drive to work. I had managed to get just behind the wheel of the car and got ran over. Got rushed to hospital and at around midnight parents got a call from hospital because I was running around the place like a lunatic waking all the other kids up and basically I got away with a car tire mark and that's it. TLDR. I was a super baby who got ran over and didn't break a single thing. Comment from Amaxophobe. Rolled my car. Got out of the car bewildered and in shock. Noticing a kink in my neck. As someone who constantly cracks my knuckles, back, neck. My instinct was just, I'm not hurt. Thank God. Just need to crack my neck and I'll be fine. Before I finished processing that train of thought I was held down in C-spine by the person behind me who had watched my crash. Luckily he was an off-duty firefighter. I had broken 3 vertebrae in my neck. I just couldn't tell it yet from the adrenaline and shock. Required full surgery to fuse together with bone from my hip and plates, screws. Had there not been someone behind me and had I proceeded with my, "'tis but a scratch," instincts I'd be paralyzed or dead. Comment from VP_specs. I actually got stabbed one time in my lower thigh. Walked to the hospital with my coat covering it cause I didn't wanna freak out any kids. All thanks to the wonderful thing called alcohol. Stung like a bitch the next day though. Comment from _Leica_. I ran into the top of a door frame. Did the whole cartoon head outside. Legs flying inside and then falling on my back. Head hurt a tiny bit so I covered my forehead with my hand with some pressure for a minute. When I removed my hand and tried to get up, my friends who were crowded over me collectively gasped. Turns out I had split my forehead skin open and they could see the bone. I literally wouldn't have known if they hadn't been so freaked out. Couldn't feel a thing. Got 5 stitches and a small scar near my hairline. Comment from Bobble_volcanic. When I fell through a window and cut my stomach open. My colon and stomach both fell out of my body while I caught and looked up at my friends bleeding out. Was in shock. But alas, 'tis but a scratch. Still here today, hooray. Comment from ChillingInChai. A slab of glass shattered and fell on me and my mom. I checked mom for any injuries and went to clean up the mess, which was promptly followed by my mother screaming and flipping her shit. Apparently I had left a trail of blood around the house because the glass left a deep gash on my foot. She even scolded me because I was laughing at the whole situation. Fun times. Comment from nonuthairmugee. When I was in elementary school we used to play this game at recess where we would try and see how many people we could fit in the tube slide without the person at the bottom falling out. When it came to be my turn to be the person at the bottom, I thought I was being smart by bracing my hands against the wall of the slide. Next kid came sliding down and his foot hit the perfect spot on my hand and dislocated my thumb at the second joint. Other kids laughing that I could only hold one kid in when I held my hand up and smiled and said, "Watch how fast I can make my thumb grow," and pulled it back into place with a loud pop. One of the kids freaked out and told me and I got sent home for the day, but I felt like the coolest 4th grader there ever was for not freaking out when my bone wasn't where it should have been. Comment from JamWatt23. I was playing football, soccer, and twisted my ankle. Had to stop but managed to walk to the coach to get home. Walked from the coach stop to my house, about 1.5 miles, and went to sleep. Woke up the next day and my ankle was the size of a grapefruit and had to call an ambulance due to quite severe pain. The medical examiner assumed my ankle was crushed by a very heavy object as I had fractured 5 bones. Broke my leg and had extensive cartilage, ligament damage. I have been told now that I will never heal to 100% again. 3 years later and I still have pain and my foot goes numb all the time. This is 2 weeks after when my first cast was removed. https://imager.com gallery iodxlgf. Comment from omglookawhale. When I was 10, I was a gymnast and we were practicing a bunch of tumbling passes for a show we were putting on for kids in a summer camp who were coming to use our gym one day. For the show, we had the lights down and were only using a spotlight. Well, one of the girls did a tumbling pass and landed weirdly. She got up and hobbled to the back of the line, and when it was her turn again, she tried to run and immediately fell and got up and tried again and the same thing happened. Then the poor girl behind her casually said, "Your bone is sticking out." The lights came on and sure enough, the girl's shin bone, maybe, was protruding from her shin. She didn't realize it and had still been trying to tumble, but her leg just simply didn't work. I actually saw a few bones just sticking out of my fellow gymnasts now that I think about it. Woman shrugging light skin tone. Comment from anonymous horny girl_. When I was 6, I badly bruised my arm when performing cartwheels and backflips, and at first when I fell it was no big deal until my arm was swollen and I couldn't bend it. Had to wear a cast for a few weeks. Comment from JennyBagaDonuts. Riding my bike. Got hit by a car. The driver of the car behind the guy that hit me got out and ran up to me telling me she was going to call the paramedics. To stay still. Help is coming. I got up. Told the guy who hit me, dude never even got out of his car. Only rolled down the window a few inches, to watch what he's doing and be more careful in the future. Thanked the lady who was trying to help, but looked over my bike and since it was still rideable, continued on my way. I later found out I broke my leg. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.